I said this was going to happen. I said that the left was going to somehow say that these winter storms that has a large portion of America freezing, record-setting temperatures, that this was the result of global warming. And I'm not going to say it was a coordinated effort in response, but it sure looks like it. Headline in the AP today, climate change. U.S. needs to brace itself for more deadly storms. Why? Because of climate change. Now, the White House asked about this because a number of elected officials and others have been saying, look, we are over-reliant upon renewable energy that, you know, when push comes to shove, it's great to have, but you can't have it as your main source of energy. It's not reliable. You got to have reliable sources of energy. Well, the White House pushed back Wednesday on claims made by conservative politicians and pundits blaming renewable energy sources for widespread power outages in Texas in the wake of this week's unprecedented winter storms. Now, this is coming from Yahoo News. Asked to comment on former Energy Secretary Rick Perry's assessment that too much reliance on wind and solar power was at least partly responsible for the blackouts that have left millions of Texans in the dark, the White House press secretary said the opposite was true. And then, of course, Yahoo News goes to the definitive source of information on climate change. One of the authors of the Green New Deal, AOC, weighed in on Governor Abbott's similar claims, saying, this is AOC, climate scientists warn that extreme winter storms like the one that has crippled much of the nation this week are likely to continue for decades, even as the planet continues warming. That only makes sense on Instagram. Joining me now to talk more about this is our good friend, Dr. Cal Beisner. He is the founder and national spokesman for the Cornwall Alliance for the Stewardship of Creation. Cal, welcome back to the program.
Tony, thanks very much. Great to be back with you. I have been in Oklahoma throughout this period and have experienced this amazing cold. So it's been fun. You know, Al Gore had a whole bunch of his speaking engagements years ago canceled because of unexpected, severe snowstorms and the like. Well, I was doing a bunch of speaking engagements here and had them canceled for the very same reason. In my case, it's not terribly surprising. He was telling us, though, that we would not have any more such weather. So it's kind of
it's interesting.
Went against his message.
It's been a few years back, but I think it was a couple of times there were. This was back when they were calling it global warming, and they've changed it now to climate change. Yes. But I stick with the original term because it really just allowed them to be poked. We could poke fun at them more easily when they're talking about global warming, and they had to shut down hearings on Capitol Hill because of snowstorms. Yes. So, look, there's no question. There's no question. And you don't challenge the fact that the climate is changing. The issue is what is causing the change.
Yeah, that's correct. And in fact, I don't even challenge the claim that human emissions of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases probably contribute to some climate change. We know that we've affected climate change on local and regional levels for a long time by changing infrastructure, building homes, putting down blacktop, things like that, farming and so on. That all affects local and regional climate. And I'm even happy to say, yeah, probably our addition of CO2 and other greenhouse gases to the atmosphere makes the world a little warmer than it otherwise would be. But I am totally convinced that the emphasis is on little, a little warmer, right. Mild to moderate, and certainly not catastrophic, and not justifying spending trillions and trillions of dollars trying to stop it. When instead we can adapt at a far lower cost and save a whole lot of lives and lift billions of people out of poverty.
I mean, Cal, is there not a trade-off for everything? When we look at the fact that man has occupied the planet, yes, it's made animals kind of move out because the people have taken over. When you've got people present, it's going to change the environment. But energy, when we're talking about a reliable energy source, and I'm not against renewables. I think they're great. If we can use them, let's put them into the mix. But when we're talking about, like, this administration shutting down the pipeline, the Keystone Pipeline, stopping the fracking, and what we're doing is driving up energy cost, which affects disproportionately
Absolutely.
People of lower incomes and has a global effect.
Yeah, absolutely. And, what we're going to see is over the short term, as Biden's policy has restricted the drilling on federal lands, that's going to drive up oil and natural gas prices here in the United States. It's already done so significantly. And frankly, a lot of oil and gas companies love that. But over the long term, what Biden wants to do is to eventually freeze those out completely, to end all that production here in the United States anyway, in pursuit of fighting global warming. Well, that is going to hurt those very companies and, of course, all of the millions and millions of stockholders in those companies. That's going to impoverish people all over. But the really bad thing is that this kind of policy pursued around the world to fight global warming is going to slow, stop, or reverse the climb out of poverty for billions of people. As Christians who care much about the poor and remember that Jesus said that he came that the gospel might be preached to the poor. Well, part of good news to the poor is you don't have to stay poor forever. You can grow out of it, but that's not going to happen if the world pursues the quixotic quest against climate change.
And just last question, because we're almost out of time, but this is taking on climate change is one of those things that you can't really measure success, so it gives politicians the ability to ask for more and more power because we can never measure what they've accomplished.
Yeah, well, actually, Tony, we can do a little measuring. We can project very well, based on their own assumptions, what the Paris Climate Agreement would achieve. That would be 0.3 of a degree Fahrenheit temperature reduction in 2100. We can also project, based on their own assumptions, what it'll cost. About $23.3 to $46.6 trillion per tenth of a degree temperature reduction. That's insane.
Yeah, and it won't make much of a difference in August in Louisiana. Cal Beisner, except my wallet will be a little thinner. Thanks so much for joining us. As always, great to talk with you.
You too, Tony. God bless.